got bass. Yes, we got bass.
You know, who's that snitch? Like when you witness a murder and you want to tell the judge or the jury, you gonna get murdered too. That's what the whole song talk about. Another body murdered coming from Gangxta mother Rig.
Everyone I talk to, man, they should really this, really that. I'm like,
But
I'm Samoan, man. I don't give a I don't care. You King Kong, you Godzilla, you gonna get the beat.
The Booyah tribe never got the recognition they deserved in the music world, but out on the streets, their reputation was nothing short of untouchable.
They're only gangsters to the music industry, but to the streets,
they're like gangsters to MTV, but not to the streets. You know what I'm saying? Booyah tribe is for the streets, you know?
These were towering Samoan powerhouses, each topping 6 feet and weighing over 300 pounds, and just one look at them was enough to make anyone think twice. As Cypress Hill's Be Real once put it, anyone who knows the Booyah tribe knows their sheer size is intimidating. Nobody dared mess with them. If they backed you up and said, "He's with us, don't mess with him," then nobody dared cross that line. Having the Booyah in your corner was like rolling with a battalion of soldiers. But even in a crew that fearsome, one man stood out as the wild card, Paul DeVoe, better known as Gangxta Rid.
They were coming, come here, gangster, whispering. I was like, what's up? Suge Knight scared him.
If the rest of Booyah were soldiers, Gangxta was the berserker, completely unhinged. There's this behind-the-scenes story from their track. Another body murdered, where everyone's tiptoeing around the topic, careful with their words, trying not to give too much away. Until Rid just slices through the caution and flat out says the song's about snitches, and that snitches get murdered too.
You know, who's that snitch? Like when you witness a murder and you want to tell the judge or the jury, you gonna get murdered too. That's what the whole song talk about. Another body murdered coming from Gangxta mother.
Even Suge Knight, who just about everyone in the game feared, wanted no problems with Gangxta Rid. Rid once told the story of how, during a session, he straight up hurled his lyric book at Suge's face, and Suge didn't do a thing.
I was at Death Row. I threw my lyric book at Suge Knight. I tried to hit him in the head.
Later, other Death Row artists like Left Eye from TLC and Keisha Cole quietly admitted to Rid that Suge actually feared him.
They were coming, come here, gangster, whispering. I was like, what's up? Suge Knight scared of you. Suge Knight scared of you.
And it made perfect sense. Rid wasn't the kind of man you tested. As he put it himself, he didn't care who you were. Come at him sideways, and you were getting dealt with.
Everyone I talk to, man, they should really this, really that. I'm like,
but
I'm Samoan, man. I don't give a I don't care. You King Kong, you Godzilla, you gonna get your beat.
And Booyah tribe weren't just soldiers, they were protectors. One of their most legendary behind-the-scenes plays was stepping in for Eminem. Back in the early 2000s, M was in LA and allegedly getting extorted by. Things started getting serious, and when word reached his manager Paul Rosenberg, he knew exactly who to call. Booyah. Once the DeVoe brothers stepped in and made a few calls, the extortion ended instantly. The Crips backed off quick. Nobody wanted smoke with 40-deep Samoan muscle. Eminem later returned the favor by hopping on their 2003 track 911 with Be Real, making it clear from the start, everywhere we go, people know we roll 40, 50 deep in Samoans. They knew, and when Debo was,
everywhere we go, people know we roll deep as 40, 50 Samoans, ain't no one.
Their reputation for throwing hands stretched way back. In a 2023 interview, Tone Loc recalled a wild club night in the late 80s when a few of the Booyah brothers allegedly beat up his cousin, and Tone felt he had to pull a strap just to keep it from spiraling out of control.
So we about to get into it. One of them pulled out a gat, I pulled out my gat, and we basically just, it's there. Nobody's busting, but nobody's running.
Even with a weapon in hand, Tone admitted he thought twice. One look at the Booyah crew, and he knew it might not end well. The tribe also had deep ties to Death Row Records, often acting as muscle. In 2002, they rolled with Suge Knight to the West Coast Hip Hop Summit, showing up in full force. Their presence sent a clear message. Suge wasn't to be tested that day. Tensions between rival crews ran high, but no violence broke out, likely because Booyah was on guard. They even waded into the music beefs of the era. After Snoop Dogg split from Death Row, a diss track called Thoro Y'all Hoes dropped, with Gangxta Rid himself on the track alongside hard hitters like Spiderlock and Eastwood. Rid went all in, clowning Snoop with lines like, Once upon a time on the Row West Coast, there was a rapper named Snoop with extended cornrows. He would always bark about this and that.
Rapper named Snoop with extended cornrows. He would always bark about this and that.
Word was spreading that Booyah might actually pull up on Snoop too, but a mutual connection stepped in before it could escalate. Producer Dama claimed he personally helped cool things down before it went left. Yet beyond their muscle and feared street reputation, the Booyah tribe were hip-hop trailblazers in their own right. Long before spitting bars, the DeVoe brothers were professional dancers, grooving to funk, crafting routines, and putting on shows in their South Bay neighborhood under the name the Blue City Strutters. Music was in their blood, and early on they gravitated to live funk, playing as a full band before ever grabbing a mic. Then tragedy struck in 1987 when their youngest brother was gunned down in a gang-related shooting. That loss became their turning point. Instead of sinking deeper into the streets, they made a pact to honor his memory by devoting themselves fully to music, because that's what he would have wanted. Seeking to escape LA's gang pull, they left the US entirely and relocated to Japan. Random as it sounds, Japan lit the spark they needed. Overseas, they hit the stage again, with Gangxta Rid commanding crowds with raw intensity. Booyah toured Japan through the mid-1980s, greeted with open arms, their energy and authenticity catching fire. That overseas love gave them the confidence to regroup and return to California in 1988, this time, all in. They rebranded as the Booyah Tribe, Booyah, meaning Samoan victory cry, tribe, reflecting their international brotherhood. Their debut, New Funky Nation, dropped soon after, breaking the mold while others leaned on samples. Booyah played their own bass, drums, guitar, and horns live. Over the years, their sound grew bolder and more versatile, crossing genres through unexpected collaborations. On the iconic Judgment Night soundtrack, they joined forces with rock band Faith No More for the crushing Another Body Murdered. They linked with Kid Frost on his East Side Story LP, jumped on the Transplants' Haunted Cities album, and brought raw fire to POD as Testify with the track On the Grind. Their 1989 single Raid made serious noise, and by 1993, they were featured on EYC's Get Some, which broke into international charts. But long before the tours, fame, and rap verses, the brothers first learned music in their father's Assembly of God church, performing during services, then sneaking in after hours to experiment with funk grooves and early hip-hop beats. Their lyrics often sat firmly in the gangster rap lane, covering everything from street justice and carjackings to violence and weed culture, harsh truths they never sugarcoated. At the same time, they paved the way for other Samoan voices in hip-hop. Artists like Cosmo from New Zealand credited Booyah as proof Samoans could make their mark in the culture. Being Samoan in America, especially in hip-hop, meant balancing two worlds, and Booyah managed it flawlessly. They wore both their American upbringing and Samoan heritage with pride, something albums like Angry Samoans in 1997 made crystal clear. And when talking Booyah Tribe, you can't skip their street family, the Sons of Samoa. This wasn't just a crew, they were one of the most feared gangs in existence. Formed in Long Beach in the mid-1980s, the Sons of Samoa, or SOS, quickly expanded their reach, hitting Hawaii and key California hubs like San Jose, Oakland, and Hayward, cities tied closely to the Sanu family, deepening their regional influence. Law enforcement in Washington state described SOS as masters of intimidation, known for extortion, drug ripoffs, and even homicide when situations spiraled out of control.
What kind of weapons do the gangs use? Your gang, for example?
38, 22, 357, 9, AK.
It's pretty heavy sort of artillery.
These guys weren't the type to walk away from trouble. They'd square up with almost any gang that crossed their path, but their most frequent rivals were the Tongan Crips, which only fueled street tensions. The SOS gang carried a distinct identity through their symbols. Most famously, the Seattle Mariners logo on hats and gear, and their own set of hand signs, each one loaded with meaning in gang-heavy areas where symbols spoke louder than words. Long Beach detective Norm Sorensen told the Los Angeles Times in 1990 that Sons of Samoa were notorious for being brutally tough, especially when drinking or on drugs. Their patience for conflict was zero. A wrong look was enough to trigger a fight. Sorensen called them the kind of crew that would throw down without hesitation, their unpredictability making them even more dangerous. Their violent reputation wasn't rumor, it was lived reality. Word spread fast about their readiness to brawl or use force, earning them both fear and respect. Whether it was intimidation, asserting dominance, or clashing with rivals, SOS kept their business raw and direct. What set them apart from many gangs, though, was that they didn't operate entirely outside mainstream life. There was no formal initiation, No brutal hazing or jumping in. Joining was more organic, rooted in the need for Samoans to protect themselves as a small minority. In 2000, for example, Oakland's entire Samoan population was just 614 people, about 15 of the city making unity, a survival strategy. A friend of the Sanu family once testified that SOS had a strong presence in places like San Jose and even within Samoan churches. Inside those walls, members spoke about respect, especially toward elders, a core value of Samoan culture. But once they stepped outside, many of those same men showed a far darker, more volatile side.
I won't hesitate to shoot anyone.
You went?
No, I wouldn't hesitate to shoot anyone if they come and mess.
Interestingly, despite the havoc SOS could unleash, not everyone saw them strictly as a criminal enterprise. For many, especially other Samoans, they were more like a community hub, a brotherhood built on protecting each other in a world where they felt outnumbered and overlooked. It wasn't always about crime, it was about solidarity, survival, and shared identity. In the Bay Area, their approach even stood apart from the notorious color wars that consumed LA's streets in the 90s. While Bloods and Crips waged red versus blue battles down south, SOS in the Bay kept their focus on alliances, control, and adapting to whatever secured their place. That adaptability made them even more unpredictable. Federal prosecutors in San Jose revealed how a Monterey subset of SOS partnered with the Norteno-affiliated murder squad, turning cooperation into deadly action. By 2017, they were targeting Sereno rivals, not just with threats, but with coordinated attacks, including a planned murder and drive-by shootings. Like the Hayward hit, where a revolver sprayed a home full of Serenos. Their methods weren't limited to bullets either. Sometimes it was pure blunt force. The one-hit quitter knockout punch became a signature move, followed by stripping victims of jackets, wallets, or shoes right where they fell. One of the most haunting chapters tied to SOS was the 1996 murder of 25-year-old Nolan Tuan, a man set to marry his fiancée, Rowena Panel, the very next day. That night in Hayward, Nolan stepped from his car at the wrong moment, catching the eye of men in a stolen van. Forced inside at gunpoint, he was robbed as they drove through the bay, then argued over who would kill him. Despite his desperate pleas, he was shot in the chest with a sawed-off shotgun and left to die in the street. Just hours before his wedding, Rowena learned of his death 30 minutes before the ceremony. The day's joy turned to devastation. The killers were sloppy, keeping stolen goods, wearing blood-stained clothes. And within 10 days, 4 suspects were arrested. 3 tied to SOS. 2 cooperated for 16-year sentences. The shooter and another remain behind bars. Yet even with a history soaked in violence, some accounts over the years tell of SOS members stepping up for people in need. Even those with no ties to the gang, proof that their legacy, like their identity, wasn't entirely omnidimensional.